It is certainly one of the world's most famous music streaming services, if not the biggest, and it went public this week. The Swedish music streaming service Spotify launched on the New York Stock Exchange. So how is this going to change the way we relate to streaming music? And of course, what has the impact so far been of Spotify? To debate that, we have our panelists this week. OLIVIA ROSENMAN is an audio producer and she's a technology expert. And ARIEL BOGLE is the online technology reporter for the ABC. I'm actually surprised at how long it's taken Spotify to do this. They've been a private company for a really long time. Why has it taken them so long, Ariel?
Well, perhaps because it's never turned a profit. But that doesn't seem to bother anyone. Doesn't bother Amazon, does it? Doesn't bother Netflix.
Amazon has a profit, surely.
I mean, only in recent times. There was a very long period there where Amazon ran negative. And this is the model that a lot of these tech companies have been sort of exploiting, the idea of raising enough venture capital to be able to expand hugely and rapidly and then worry about profits later.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting. Spotify is obviously the biggest music streaming platform in the world. I mean, I was just looking at some of the numbers and I think that they bring in, about $5 billion a year. But for every dollar they earn, they have to hand about 79 cents of that back to the record industry. But that's a big reason why they're not profitable. They have to just give so much back to these big record companies, your Warners, your Universals. Who
in turn hand back a pittance to artists.
Spotify will have to be looking at other ways of making money. So Netflix, which has a sort of a similar business model, is obviously making original content now. That's how it's keeping people hooked on the platform. What Spotify, can it make its own music? It certainly has been rumoured to make its own music in the past, although it has denied those accusations.
This is the story where they make fake songs. Actually, can you explain the story? Because I've never clearly been able to wrap my head around this.
Yeah, so there's long been rumours that in those giant playlists that you can subscribe to, like Rap Caviar or like Sunday mornings or calm meditation music, where they decide what you want to listen to, sort of algorithmically driven, that Spotify was quote unquote stuffing some of those playlists with music that it had commissioned and kind of hidden in there under the table. Because every song that gets streamed by an artist, they have to pay to the record label, pay to the artist. But if they own the music, they don't have to pay anyone.
Literally the Netflix model. The more original productions they can make, the less they have to.
Yeah.
I don't think that's unethical. I just think that's business.
I think that people would be very disconcerted for that kind of anonymous stuffing, but I think people would be all right with Spotify commissioning legit artists to make legit music, right?
Yeah.
So one area where they have begun dipping their toe in commissioning and where they're rumoured to be looking towards for profits in the future is podcasts.
Yeah.
So,
sorry. Does anyone make money on podcasts? Sorry.
Somebody somewhere is making money on podcasts because everybody is investing in it.
Everyone isn't. Yeah, I mean, Gimlet just raised another round of some millions of dollars.
No, that's just convincing people that one day you might make money. That's not actually making money.
Yeah, who's turning the profit? I want to see profits.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. On one hand, it kind of makes sense to listen to podcasts in Spotify. It's like music, all your oral stimulation can happen in Spotify. And it was funny, I spent this morning just scrolling through, like browsing podcasts on Spotify. It's actually quite a nice user experience.
Ariel, you were about to say something.
Oh, I was just commenting that I think one issue with ads on Spotify, and not just in their podcast realm, is that the majority of their revenue still comes from subscriptions. Yeah. But the majority of people still do not subscribe.
Do we know how many people are listening to the free terrible ads and how many of them are actually paying money to avoid the terrible ads?
So in February, when they put out their documents to go public, Spotify said about 159 million people are using the platform per month, and 71 million of those are paying subscribers, which means that the majority of people are still listening to those horrific ads. How
do you see streaming changing the way you listen to music?
I've seen some really great analysis by music journalists of Spotify's playlist offering, these curated playlists that they create. Rap Caviar, for example, has more than 9 million subscribers. So if you're a hip hop artist and you get on that, that's a life-changing means of discoverability. And then, of course, they're the ones that they curate for yourself. I really have discovered a lot of music on there that I would not have found otherwise. I mean, I'm sure Spotify is extracting data out of us just like all the other platforms. But it is one of the few remaining platforms that I have a perhaps mistaken sense of goodwill towards. I don't know if you guys
because
also have
the value,
same,
because
the
it's
value
serving you back value.
Exactly.
That's interesting because I think for me it's impacted my music consumption for the worse. So I used to have a massive iTunes library that I had carefully cultivated over several years by burning, ripping up CDs that I'd bought and sharing USB sticks with friends. And I had this great library that I knew very intimately, even though it was quite large. And so I listened to the whole breadth of that library. Now, because I have every song at my fingertips, I'm not an advanced Spotify user. So I don't
What, you press
make
play,
enough.
you hit subscribe. What level of skill is this
I don't
involved?
know, especially because I'm usually just using it through Alexa.
This mental image of you staring at a phone is like mashing it, going, why won't it play?
Why
won't it play?
But all we're doing here is like adding a new gatekeeper, and people are just trying to game iTunes chart in podcasts. You just try to get noticed. It says nothing about the quality. But no, I think it's really interesting. It's just sort of another level of gaming a system to get noticed, and it's all a bit sad, really.
But once upon a time, we used to bribe radio presenters to play your song. I mean, this is, I would argue, ever so slightly more ethical, but that's just me. All right, there is lots more of this in the podcast, so download this show. You can get it in all of your podcasty apps, including, frankly, Spotify. Hey, also, we're going to be talking about a new app that some people claim can help stop terrorism. Is that true? Download the podcast and you will find out. We'll see you there.